Today I'm going to go over a simple lesson plan on buoyancy. So what is buoyancy? Buoyancy is the force that allows objects to either sink or float when they are added to different liquids or in gases. This will be the explanation of why boats float on top of water and why balloons will fly in the air. I have taken the liberty of pouring water into this glass. This is exactly 1 1/3 cup of water. I'm going to take this piece of aluminum and put it on top of the water. Because it is less dense than the water, it should float. As you can see, the foil is now floating on top of the water. Now what would happen if we decided to crumple this up? Do we believe that the surface area changing will cause it to float or to sink? Well, let's test it out. It is floating just on top of that water. Because the density has not changed, only the surface area, the foil will only float. Now we can manipulate the weight that we have in this foil. So, I've already created a small little foil thing that is shaped into a boat, and it will float on top of this water. I'm going to now add pennies until it starts sinking. So, 1 penny, no effect. 2 pennies, starting to sink a little bit. 3 pennies, a little more. 4 pennies, even more. 5 pennies, more. And 6 pennies. It is now completely submerged in the water. Now that we've gone over what happens when a boat is submerged into the water, let's test what will happen when we crumple this boat up with the same amount of weight. So I have 6 pennies in my hand. I'm going to add them to the boat and crumple the boat up. As we learned last time, when we crumple up the same amount of surface area, it should act the same. So do you think that this will float or this will sink? Let's test it out. The boat sinks completely to the bottom because the weight is now denser than that of the water. Now that we've gone over what solids act like when they are placed into liquids, let's go over what happens when liquids are added to other liquids. So I'm going to add 1/3 of a cup of vegetable oil into a cup with 1/3 of a cup of water. To show this effect, I will add the oil first. Now I'm going to get the water. Now watch carefully as I pour the water into the oil. What will happen to the oil? Because the oil is less dense than the water, it floats on top. It has gone from being at the bottom of the cup to being at the top. In conclusion, we can say that buoyancy is a force that can be manipulated with the simple understanding of the differences in densities within objects and fluids. We can change the buoyant forces in 2 ways. We can manipulate the density of the object. This can make it so that the objects will float in a lower density liquid or sink when it's in a higher density liquid. Or we can manipulate the density of the fluid. This makes the fluid float if it has a greater density or sink if it has a lower density. This proves why a boat will float on top of the ocean or why a balloon filled with helium will float into the atmosphere.